Understanding serotonin's relationship to mental health seems to be a daunting problem to tackle. However, we can understand the fundamentals starting simply with this cookie right here. Turns out, this delicious treat is a perfect example of a process that occurs within our minds involving the neurotransmitter serotonin. Serotonin, like all other neurotransmitters, is basically a chemical that helps transmit signals between neurons, which are cells that make up our brain. They are crucial for the regulation of our mood. Before we can go more in depth about how it does this, we first need to understand the components of a neuron. Neurons are the single piece to a large puzzle of the brain, each crucial with transmitting various electrical signals around the brain that encode tasks for the body's function. To break it down even further, neurons consist of the receiving end, the dendrite, the cell body, and the transmitting end of the axon and axon terminal. These are like the holes and knobs of a puzzle piece in that the receiving end connects with the terminals of other neurons. Now, let's take a look at serotonin and zoom in on this connection between neurons to see how signals are sent. First, serotonin is created from a protein called tryptophan, which you can find in foods you eat like salmon, milk, cheese, tofu, and eggs. Tryptophan is like the essential ingredient to serotonin, just like how flour or eggs or chocolate chips are essential to cookies. They are then surrounded in vesicles, a membrane package to be carried to the outer edge of the axon terminal. Think of it like the tray to help get the cookies from the piping hot oven to the table. First, serotonin needs to travel through the vesicles, shown in yellow, to the synaptic cleft, the space between the axon terminal of the signaling neuron on the left and dendrites of the receiving neuron on the right. Second, they then float in this thin space to bind to the receptors on the dendrites of the receiving neuron. Finally, they return to the signaling neuron, shown in cyan, through a special protein called the serotonin transporter protein. This acts like a messenger, notifying the receiving neuron to become active and continue the signal, sort of like a domino effect. When this chain of neurons, or pathway, becomes stimulated in a specific fashion, the brain can then dictate which hormones or chemicals to release, shaping our emotions and moods. But with such a complex process, it becomes susceptible to flaws and mishaps. To understand how this can go awry, let's imagine a setting of cheerful partygoers. What would happen if a friend, rather than share the cookies, keeps them stored in a jar on the highest shelf, or ate them all themselves? As a whole, this prevents everyone from enjoying the bonding moment over the treat. Similarly, this can be extremely problematic in the brain when neurons keep the serotonin to themselves, sequestered in their terminals, rather than have it floating in the synaptic cleft or cerebral spinal fluid, a liquid substance that surrounds neurons, which can then allow serotonin to travel and interact with a variety of neurons. Low serotonin levels, especially low levels circulating the brain, is what brings about mood disorders and illness. One way people have been able to increase the circulating serotonin is to prevent the storage of serotonin in neurons in the first place. SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, do just that. They prevent reuptake of serotonin into the neurons by inhibiting the receptor that transports serotonin back to the signaling neuron. It ensures that more serotonin is present in the synaptic cleft and cerebral spinal fluid. Going back to our party, if the mom of the selfish friend comes along and insists that they share the cookies with their party mates, or stops them from placing the jar on the shelf, this can help make everyone happy as they take a bite into the delicious treats.